All right, welcome in to the New England Nation Overtime Podcast. Recording this on another victory Monday for the Patriots after they beat the Texans to advance to the AFC Championship game where they'll take on the Denver Broncos. Crazy to say that. We have Doug Kyed from the Boston Herald. Doug, you were obviously at the game. Kind of a messy game with the snow, and the game itself it was messy, but just what were your initial thoughts on the Patriots win?
Yeah, I feel like the Patriots defense outplayed the vaunted Texans defense in that game, which is really difficult to do. Obviously, Texans were very dominant in that game as well on defense. Their pass rushers, Daniil Hunter, Will Anderson, did a great job against the Patriots tackles. But I mean, the Patriots defense winning that matchup, taking it a little bit personally that everyone was talking up the Texans defense the way that they were all week. And I mean, they forced 5 turnovers on the Texans offense, 4 interceptions. Everyone on defense was flying around. Everyone was really enjoying the victory after the game. So that was really my biggest takeaway is that we need to start taking this Patriots defense really seriously because when everyone's out there and when everyone's healthy, it really does look like a top 5, top 3, maybe even the best unit in the NFL.
Kind of perfect segue into my next point. Kind of, do you feel like, now at this point, Patriots, obviously, Broncos, Seattle has quite the defense. The Rams also have a very formidable defense. But do you feel like the Patriots are up there with, as being one of the best defenses left in the NFL postseason?
Yeah, I do. And I don't think they're going to get some like nickname like the Legion of Boom. I don't know if they're going to be remembered the same way as the 1985 Bears because they weren't able to do this all season. I mean, they were really good to start the season, especially against the run. They finished strong once Milton Williams came back. But when Christian Gonzalez is out there, when Milton Williams is out there, when Robert Spillane's out there, and when they're really clicking, it's hard for offenses to move the ball on this team. And we saw it against Justin Herbert. They were really flummoxing Justin Herbert out there in the wild card round. And then CJ Stroud was playing like he's like the worst quarterback in the NFL out there. 4 interceptions all in the first half. It's just really difficult for offenses to do anything against this defense. And there's some holes there, but they play really well as a unit and they're very consistent across the board. Like they can stop the run, they can get pressure on the quarterback. Their secondary is really good. So I think they do stack up right now with how they're playing with any of the other defenses in the playoffs.
And it helps out that, Nico Collins obviously was a huge loss heading into this one, but sometimes in the playoffs, you just need the ball to bounce your way. No Nico Collins, and then you lose Dalton Schultz early in the game. And that helps, give your defense confidence in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the ball's been bouncing the Patriots' way all season. Obviously, everyone's made a huge deal about the schedule that they've had to face this season. And then they face a Chargers team that obviously was without their 2 starting tackles. Texans team, as you mentioned, no Nico Collins. Trent Brown's not playing that game. Titus Howard leaves the game. Dalton Schultz leaves the game. And CJ Stroud doesn't play like he did all year. And then obviously now against the Broncos playing without Bo Nix. So, yeah, the ball is definitely bouncing the Patriots' way. They're going to go through the playoffs without having to play Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, all of these top tier AFC quarterbacks. But I mean, that's the NFL right now, and the Patriots are here for a reason. They are one of the best 4 teams in the NFL right now.
Crazy to even say that, but kind of looking at the other side of the ball, second playoff game for Drake May. Not as great as the first start, but I think the great thing to see was, you go through some adversity and then he was able to bounce back.
Yeah, for sure. And it was, yeah, in that way, it was almost similar to the first game where he had his best play of the game, the throw to Booty in the second half. And really, it's funny because if you look at the stat sheet in a vacuum, it's like, oh, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception that came on a Hail Mary. Completion percentage wasn't what it usually was. But no, I mean, the 4 fumbles obviously are considered as well. And overall, May hasn't played like himself in the postseason as he did during the regular season. But I mean, you also do have to consider the defenses that they face. Like the Chargers are a top 5 defense. Texans are probably the best defense in the NFL. So quarterbacks are going to struggle against those types of teams. And the good thing for the Patriots right now is that Drake May did not struggle nearly as much as Justin Herbert did against the Patriots defense, and he didn't struggle nearly as much as CJ Stroud did against the Patriots defense. So the competition is really fierce on defense overall, and it's not getting any easier for Drake May this week against the Broncos. And if they advance against the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, it's not going to get any easier then either. So I don't know if we're going to see that dominant, like 4 or 5 touchdown Drake May performance in the playoffs. But if they keep winning, then it really doesn't matter.
Right. And, obviously with the mistakes, with the fumbles, not what you want to see in the postseason because, we saw it with Josh Allen on Saturday. That came to bite them. Do you feel like, in a way, we're being a little bit overcritical of Drake May? This is only his second playoff game of his career. But do you feel like we're being overcritical of his performance?
I mean, probably, honestly, but it's because of the expectations that he set during the regular season. So, obviously, if we had thought about before the season started, all right, Drake May entering year 2, yeah, the Patriots will make the playoffs, but he's going to have some fumbling issues in the first 2 rounds. They're going to still make it through. Everyone in New England would have taken that if we're talking about this in August or September. But then obviously he puts together the MVP caliber performance. I think another factor here is it's almost the expectations or the commentary or the noise that's coming from outside of New England too, because once he got raised in that MVP candidacy, then you're hearing chirping from Rams fans about, they want Matthew Stafford to win the MVP. So everyone's talking about the schedule or who the Patriots played, or you're hearing it from Bills fans or you're hearing it from Texans fans that they're all kind of downplaying Drake May. So I think that gets everyone on their toes a little bit while talking about Drake May. But in the grand scheme of things, if you take a 1,000-foot view or whatever, this is a quarterback in his second year winning playoff games, and that's about as good as you could possibly expect.
Yeah, the kind of the run that the Patriots are on right now, people forget that there's steps to it, and to a player's evolution, to a team's evolution, and the Patriots have, in a way, skipped steps a little bit because they've gone on this run, they've exceeded expectations, and sometimes I feel like we have to take a step back and understand, like, this is a second-year quarterback, first playoff run. He's still trying to figure it out. You just have to hope that it doesn't, lead to a loss at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think the same thing goes with the whole team too. Like you said, like they skipped multiple processes in a rebuild where they go straight from 4-13 to 14-3. And you do have to consider that Drake May does not have the greatest offensive playmakers around him. The guys are doing their job very well, but it's not like he's got Joe Burrow's wide receivers. The offensive line features rookies at left tackle and left guard, and a center who was cut by the Vikings back in March. So, yeah, this is not where anyone thought the Patriots would be. And it's funny because until really this week, I wasn't even fully thinking about the Patriots playing in the Super Bowl. I knew that it was a possibility, but now it's actually starting to feel real, especially since they're going up against Jarrett Stidham. And it really is quite unbelievable that they've been able to do it. The roster that they have, coaches who have never worked together, coaches who have never worked with players who are in their first year together. It's pretty amazing what they've been able to do in 1 year.
We'll talk about that Broncos, Jarrett Stidham, all of that later in the show. But we're going to take a quick break here. Coming up on the New England Nation Overtime Podcast, we'll talk about more of the offense and a little bit of a shaky day for Will Campbell. We'll have that right after this. All right, welcome back to the New England Nation Overtime Podcast. Aniekan Okon here with Doug Kyed of the Boston Herald. The Patriots advancing to the AFC Championship game where they'll take on the Broncos. We were talking about the offense before that break. I do want to pick it up after that. Will Campbell, another stout pass rush that he went up against. Kind of a rough day. Allowed those 2 strip sacks that the Patriots had on the day. Kind of just what are you seeing from him over these last 2 games?
Yeah, it's been tough sledding for him. And obviously, yeah, you do have to consider the competition that he's facing. But at the same time, I said the same thing after he faced Myles Garrett against the Browns. Like, it's not typical to give up whatever it was, however many sacks to Myles Garrett, like 5 sacks or whatever it was. And yeah, it's not typical for a player to give up 3 sacks and 2 forced fumbles to Will Anderson. So you want to see Will Campbell play better. I'm not sure if that's the reality of the situation. I don't know if it's going to get there this playoff run. So you might see the Patriots starting to give him a little bit more help. But I think he even mentioned after the game that when he's got guys helping him chip, it doesn't always go that well. It doesn't always help him. So I think that one thing that Drake May really has to be cognizant of is that if he's going up against one of these top pass rushers, if he's going up against a Will Anderson or Nick Bonitto, whoever it's going to be, he probably does not have as much time in the pocket as he thinks he does. So he's got to get rid of the ball faster, and we saw that against the Chargers, where Will Campbell's just trying to cut on the edge. Drake May holds the ball too long and gets strip sacked. And he probably held the ball a little bit too long at times against the Texans as well. So I'm not blaming Drake May fully for the fumbles, but I think he has to know Will Campbell's limitations, and Josh McDaniels does too in his play calling.
Kind of schematically, what can Josh McDaniels do to kind of, get that ball out quick and kind of provide Will Campbell, Jared Wilson, because they're going up against a pass rush that led the league in sacks this year. What can they do to kind of help them out this week?
Yeah, more quick game in the offense will help. If they could get some of the screens working, that would help too. Those haven't been that effective recently, but also just, I know it's basic, but just getting the run game going early, like making defenses feel threatened by the run. And Ramondre Stevenson has been great over the last 5-6 weeks of the season. It was unfortunate that he was missing parts of the game with an eye injury. So then that thrust Trevion Henderson into the top role, and he really has not been as effective. He's been a home run hitter for the Patriots, but it's a little bit boom or bust right now. And there's too many busted plays when he's running the ball. It feels like half the time when he's carrying the ball on first down, it goes for no gain or a loss of yards. So that's something that needs to be fixed a little bit too. But if your run game is playing as well as it's shown at times this year, then the defense can't just pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. They have to actually prepare to stop the run there. So that's going to be a big factor against the Broncos. I know the Patriots always like to try to run the ball early. If they can get Ramondre Stevenson going, if he can play the full game, it won't be as difficult for Will Campbell there on the edge.
And I think even for Drake May, it'll calm him down because, as we've seen the last couple of weeks that, I don't want to say he's been forcing it a little bit, but, he hasn't been playing to the level that we've seen during the regular season. So,
for sure.
They say in the postseason, you got to run the ball if you want to make it to the Super Bowl. So got to do it this week. And
they've been effective. And Ramondre Stevenson really, we saw it at the end of the game. The Texans knew that Ramondre Stevenson was going to be running the ball, and they were still able to drain the clock down there at the end. So they did prove there at the end that they could still be very effective on the ground.
Now, big matchup, obviously, this week. No Bo Nix for the Broncos. They'll have former Patriots quarterback Jarrett Stidham. We talked earlier in the show about, the Patriots defense, kind of looking at the scouting report against Jarrett Stidham. What would you like to see from the Patriots defense in order to exploit the Broncos backup quarterback?
Yeah, it is interesting because the Patriots defense has been blitzing a lot. I think you might still see a little bit of that, test Jarrett Stidham a little bit, see how he survives against a blitz, see how he looks against there. Pressure him as much as you can, but this is also something where you don't feel that threatened by Jarrett Stidham the way that you even would against someone like Justin Herbert or C.J. Stroud. He's a backup quarterback for a reason. He's only started, I think, 5 games over the course of his NFL career. The Patriots, at one point in time, thought he could be the successor to Tom Brady. Then they wound up signing Cam Newton and starting him in the 2020 season instead. So guys like Josh McDaniels, anyone who's still surviving from that era, knows Jarrett Stidham pretty well. But yeah, I think you want to get pressure on him, but I think you also have to know that Sean Payton and the Broncos are not going to be putting a lot on Jarrett Stidham's plate unless they are trailing. So they really have to take RJ Harvey, and if they can get J.K. Dobbins back, they have to take that run game really seriously.
kind of, I know for most people listening, watching to this, might not be familiar with the Broncos offense, but just outside of Knicks, kind of just, what are they able to do on offense?
Yeah, Cortland Sutton is a very good receiver, field stretcher. They've been able to run the ball well. They've got a good rookie running back in RJ Harvey. I think I saw today that J.K. Dobbins will at least be his window will open for coming off injury reserve. I'm not sure if he's going to actually be able to play at this point yet, but yeah, they are a balanced offense, not like a huge big play threat offense. But it maybe a little bit more of like a death by 1,000 cuts. So I think the Patriots defense should be able to force some mistakes out of Jarrett Stidham the same way that they did against Justin Herbert and CJ Stroud. At the same time, Herbert and Stroud played so poorly in those first two playoff games that I don't know if you can count on Jarrett Stidham playing as poorly as they did, even though he is a backup quarterback, just because I don't think that, like I said, Sean Payton will trust him enough to put that much on his plate.
Yeah, no, it'll definitely be interesting to see. I think it's easily Jarrett Stidham's probably the biggest variable for the Broncos heading into this one. We'll talk more about that matchup, but coming up on the New England Nation Overtime, we'll give you the keys for the Patriots ahead of this matchup against the Broncos. All right, welcome back to the New England Nation Overtime podcast. Aniekan Okon here with Doug Kyed of the Boston Herald. The Patriots going on to the AFC Championship game where they'll take on the Denver Broncos. An interesting stat that I saw yesterday heading into this one. It was kind of hard to believe, but, the Patriots in the postseason have been to Denver 4 times and have never won. Kind of crazy to think.
It really is. It's pretty unbelievable. And obviously, a lot of those players that they played against, or all of those players that they played against are no longer there. But it is also a difficult place to play. Mile High Stadium is always loud. The altitude, where they're obviously a mile high, makes it very difficult. And Mike Vrabel said a few times today that, they're not going out there early because it takes about a week or a week and a half to actually acclimate to the altitude. So you could see the Patriots having more of those like shift changes that they've had on defense where the defensive linemen are coming on and off the field. We might have to see guys take some more breathers out there on defense. And it is just a very difficult place to play. At the same time, the Patriots were facing some very good teams in the past when they were going up against the Broncos. I was at that playoff game in 2015 in Denver, and Peyton Manning could barely throw the ball at that point. But that Broncos offense was still very good, and they wound up winning the Super Bowl that year. So it's a tough place to play, but mostly because of how good those teams have been.
Kind of, going to your point about the depth, I think it's nice to see over the last couple of weeks that, with Williams out, with Spillane out, we've been able to see that depth. So now the Patriots in this situation will be able to utilize it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, on the defensive line, they're like 6 deep right now. They've got so many good defensive linemen that they can't even dress all of them. Eric Gregory's a rookie. He was playing well, but then once Milton Williams and Kyrus Tonga come back, he has to be on the bench because Leonard Taylor III is a guy off the practice squad who's now playing even better than him, and he's coming up. At linebacker, Jack Gibbons and Christian Ellis both played well in Robert Spillane's place. So now there's roles for both of those guys on defense as well. Even on the edge, Harold Landry hasn't been playing that much. He's still dealing with a knee injury, but Anthony Jennings has got sacks in consecutive games now. Elijah Ponder, who's a rookie, he's been able to play pretty well and as a situational pass rusher. So I actually looked at depth as being a pretty big issue coming into the season. And I give not only the front office a lot of credit for finding these guys, but also the defensive coaching staff credit for coaching them up the way that they have, because Corey Durden was a guy who was bouncing around the league. And now all of a sudden, he's your 4th defensive tackle, and he's making an impact in almost every single game. And that really goes across the board on defense right now.
Yeah, and even a guy like Kyrus Tonga, didn't hear about him before, and now he's making contributions on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, he had his first sack of the season. He's a fullback out there when they need him in short yardage situations, when Jack Westover isn't quite big enough to push the pocket. But yeah, I mean, even on offense, like if you get Mac Hollins back in this game, you've got too many wide receivers at that point, where Demario Douglas then becomes like the fourth or fifth option. Kyle Williams, Efton Chisholm behind Kayshon Boutte and Stephon Diggs. So yeah, really across the board, they've got players and good depth everywhere. Thayer Munford's getting a role on a tackle as a jumbo tight end. Austin Hooper's out there making plays every week. So yeah, it's a pretty full roster right now. And if they do activate Mac Hollins off of injured reserve, they've got a really difficult choice to make about who that 53rd guy on the roster is that they want to take off.
Kind of how much does that help the Patriots if they do activate Hollins this week? And I know Vrabel talked about that they're going to wait and see what happens with him. He's going to practice this week. But just how much does that help the Patriots, heading into Sunday? May has arguably one of his most reliable targets. It almost seems like when he needs to make a throw, when he needs to make a play, he goes to Mac Hollins and he makes that play.
Yeah, it would be really big. Just because it takes, let's say, like Kyle Williams off the field in got-to-have-it situations where you don't trust him as much. It also adds just such a different size element to that wide receiver room, where Stephon Diggs is maybe 6 feet, Kayshon Boutte is maybe 6 feet, Kyle Williams, Efton Chisholm, Demario Douglas, all those guys are under 6 feet. And then you've got Mac Hollins, who's 6'4", 221 pounds. He's out there playing like a pseudo tight end role, blocking in the run game. And without him in there, then you've got to have, Efton Chisholm or some of these other guys doing that who aren't as effective. So he's been a big part of this offense, and they've been able to weather the storm without him extremely well. But it would be a huge boost for the offense to get him back, because he is a starting wide receiver. It frees up Kayshon Boutte a little bit more, frees up Stephon Diggs a little bit more, where Diggs obviously has still made an impact over the last few weeks, but he hasn't been getting open with the same regularity because teams have been able to double him. Teams aren't going to double Mac Hollins, but they do have to fear him more than some of those other wide receivers who have been playing in his place.
Right. Because, his physicality, like you said, 6'4", like, yeah, sure, you could put two people on him, but, like, you throw the ball up, he's gonna go up and go get it.
For sure. Yeah, and I mean, just that ability to go up and get it, whether it's in the red zone or in the middle of the field. Like, how many throws have we seen Drake May make this season? I even was seeing them back in training camp where he's throwing them, 7-8 feet in the air, and Mac Hollins is able to elevate, get up there with his vertical leap, and then grab it out of the air with his wingspan. And that's just something that other wide receivers on this team cannot do over the middle of the field and snag it away from a defender. They can get open and catch balls in other situations, but you're not really asking Kayshon Boutte to win a jump ball contest against a cornerback. Broncos cornerbacks, just based on Hollins' size and physicality, will have a hard time matching up against him.
Real quick, X factor for Sunday.
Ooh, I mean, it's probably Will Campbell, honestly, just because the Patriots are going up against another ferocious pass rush with the Broncos. So if Campbell can hold up as well as he did for most of the second half of the season, I don't think the Patriots should have a problem winning this game. But if he's allowing more strip sacks, if he's getting beat off the line, if they're really abusing him out there, then that's really the path for the Broncos to win this game.
Yeah, I definitely hope he grows up a little bit and, steps up in a big way for the Patriots. But, Doug, appreciate the time. Great to say that the Patriots are back. It's been a long for us being New England New Englanders. It's been a long 7 years since they've been last in the AFC Championship game. But Doug Kyed, you can catch him, Boston Herald, always good stuff. Doug, again, we appreciate the time.
Absolutely, anytime, Aniekan.
All right, that is going to do it for the New England Nation Overtime podcast. Have a great one.